Hey everybody, and welcome to our dungeon boss guide for Saint, can't pronounce the word, Arboretum. In this guide, we're going to be focusing on the three bosses of the dungeon to kind of help give you a good understanding about what you're going to be facing, as well as the mechanics of each individual boss specifically. If you guys have any questions about this video or anything that is discussed in this video, please feel free to sound off below. I'd love to have that conversation. Alright, so our first boss is NullQ. This massive, giant, monstrous mouth of a boss. You want to pull him over to the corner and avoid his big bad breath. He's obviously going to give a nice warning for it. His tank buster is Vine Whip. You want to mitigate through this. Healers just want to be aware of that in case the tank is off of any kind of cooldowns. The boss is going to put down some various target AoEs on the ground, which is essentially going to leave a puddle of poison, and then he's going to have various stack mechanics. All of this we've seen before. And at this point, he is going to jump to a specific part of the level. You're going to know where he's going to jump because there's going to be a thing that he's going to devour. The ability, obviously, he uses Devour, and so you want to head there as soon as possible because he's pretty much going to take up the rest of the level with this various vomiting spit of poison. You want to be out of that as quickly as possible. This can easily wipe your team. Then he has an ability called Taproot. This is just going to be your standard AoE affair. Try to avoid it, not stack up on this at this time. And that is the mechanics for this boss. Again, you can see him using Devour. He's jumping over to the other part of the level, and you want to try to get out of that. That's a persistent ability. We've seen abilities like this before in various other raids, so just try to make sure you're not in front of it. It's that important. And you can see here, he pretty much takes up 90% of the level itself. At this point, just burn the boss down, make sure you mitigate through any damage, and proceed to the next boss. Next up, we have Lakumanu. We're just calling Lackey. For sure. The arena is going to be very similar to something we've seen before. It's going to have the various border edges. Make sure that you try not to go into that space. This boss is going to try to do some various knockbacks. Stone 2 acts as this boss's tank buster, so you can obviously mitigate through that. Tectonics is a group-wide AoE that's going to put a lot of damage onto everybody, so just be prepared for that. The main mechanic of this is you're going to see kind of the shifting sands, or they call landslip. Each of these lanes is going to point you in the direction in which you're going to get knocked back, and then on the sides, 2 golems, and then eventually more golems are going to put out damage on the cross section. So you're going to want to try to measure yourself up to where you want to go. Then they have a donut-wide AoE ability, so you want to run in and out to help dodge that ability. Earthshaker, we've seen this like in Diablo, so you're going to see various players with targets marked over their heads. Try to make sure that you don't stack up for this. Empty Gaze, you want to make sure your back is turned to the boss, so that way you don't get affected. And then you can see the boss is going to start repeating mechanics, this time with even more and more golems. So just try to take a look and see where you're standing and where you need to stand. Around 40%, the boss is going to start stacking mechanics on top of one another, so things are going to get a little bit hectic here. Just keep healing through the pain, mitigating the damage. At this point, you've seen all the mechanics the boss is going to throw at you, so just keep an eye out on where you're standing. Continue to burn the boss down, and you're going to get your victory. If you get knocked into any of the sides, you're going to get a vulnerability stack, so just keep that in mind. It's going to last for about a minute. Getting multiples of these stacks is going to make it really hard to survive. Even if somebody gets knocked out, you will be able to burn through this boss, especially at the tail end, so just keep that in mind and get your loot. And finally, our last boss, Toka Apichi. We'll just say that. This boss is a lot of fun. In fact, the stage itself becomes a mechanic of the boss fight. You're going to see these 4 circles on the ground, and you need to pay close attention to those. Eventually, the bubbles and the mud is at the bottom of this level is going to bubble up, so you're going to want to stack up on one of these 4 cylinders. This is going to protect you from that mechanic. Eventually, Quagmire is going to come out, and the boss is going to put varying stacking mechanics on you. You don't want to be on these 4 cylinders at that time because it's going to put a poison down on the safe spot for the level. This is going to repeat many times, and you're going to see other mechanics stack onto it here in the future. Then the boss is going to use an ability called Mud Pie. The Mud Pie is just going to be an object that you can't kill out in the world. When you hit it, you're going to be able to move it. However, every time some kind of a boss mechanic goes off, the item is going to get bigger. It's going to end up putting out raid-wide AoE damage. Heal through this, and you're going to be just fine. Make sure you're also as far away from it as possible. You can help offset it by making sure that it's on a various pillar, but eventually it's going to get hit by the boss regardless. So it is going to come out. It's just a matter of when and where. So then Feculent Flood is going to be kind of a cone-shaped ability, and he's going to target the Mud Pie. This is what I mean by that the Mud Pie is going to go off and hit the room no matter what you do. But it's important to be able to manage that as a part of the whole process. As long as you're able to mitigate through the different mechanics, you're going to be able to survive this without any problem. Later in the fight, the boss is going to bring out Royal Flush. This is an AoE ability surrounding the boss. All you have to do is just run out to avoid it. It's not going to cause you that much trouble. And finally, the boss has Mudsling. Mudsling is going to be your tank buster, for lack of a better word in this case. This is where you just want to heal up and mitigate it through. You've seen tank busters hopefully by now a couple times. Pretty much just be safe. In this case, obviously, whenever the Mud Pie is out and the floor is going out, try to place the Mud Pie as far away from you as possible. We were trying to put it on the circle in that clip. It was unsuccessful, but it's okay. We're going to go ahead and survive it anyway. And as long as with Quagmire that you have enough grates that you're not going to poison the floor. Every time that you do poison the floor, though, that does limit you and where you need to go. At this point, just go ahead and burn the boss down and collect your loot. This has been Brian for Work To Game. Hopefully this guide has been helpful. I hope you enjoyed this new dungeon that was included in patch 4.4. And like I said at the beginning, if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments below. But anyway, for Work To Game, I hope you have a fantastic day and take care.